Man, what a crappy topic, I tell ya. Welcome to the superpilotish channel. My name's Graham Wilson, and today in my basement, I'm going to be having a physiological discussion of the greatest kind. And yeah, I got this idea the other day because I was walking with my girlfriend downtown, and it seems that my town of Windsor, Ontario has now joined the elite world class cities such as Paris, New York, San Francisco. Saw some crap on the sidewalk, and it wasn't a dog. Well, unless the dog had, I don't know, a roll of toilet paper with him. It's like, oh man, that's gross. Who does that on a sidewalk, man? But first time I've heard about it in other world class cities. So I know, I guess Windsor's part of that. So I was like, oh man, but that got me thinking. And it's like, well, someone must have really had to go really bad, and that can happen in airplanes too. So, and then I was thinking, even still, as a, I guess a public service announcement to the pilot world out there, like when you learn how to be a pilot, and if I'm teaching someone ground school or teaching someone how to fly, there is pilot physiology. It kind of comes up under human factors, is what we call it here in Canada, and it talks about, I don't know, just different thing, oxygen and everything else, but it never really talks about plumbing or anything like that. So, oh hey, Corey, Dan, Pyramid Seven, Yo Yo, and Farius Johnson's here too. Cool. Yeah, so it's like, all right, well, let's talk a little bit about the physiology of these things. What goes in must come out, right? And if you're German, one goes in, five comes out. That's kind of a German saying. But if you, yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, it's not such a big deal if you're, I don't know, just a passenger on your average, I don't know, 737 or some jet. It's got a lavatory in the back, the lav as they call it, and it's no problem for anybody. Pilots, crew, passengers, everything works out great. And it is, strangely enough, I would consider having a lav. It's kind of a safety feature, actually, because if there is, when you really, really got to go, you really got to go. And that's kind of all you can think about. So at the end of a long cross country flight, and maybe you made the mistake of pounding a whole pile of Tim Hortons before time. You'll make that mistake once, but yeah, when you really got to go, it does affect your pilot decision making. Believe it or not, that, man, I gotta get on the ground, and that is not necessarily the best way to be doing an approach and landing. It's like sometimes you might not be able to get on the, what if I don't know, something's on the runway or something, the old deer on the runway, what do you do? And it's like, if you got to go and like the deer's way on the end of the runway, I'm landing, man. But that can go through your head. You're not supposed to, but yeah, so it kind of could get into being sort of a safety issue there. And then another thing too is that how good or like, say, even if you're in a little airplane, you're planning to go to a certain destination, and then the Tim Hortons coffee's kicking in, and it's like, okay, maybe I'll land at this airport just to get another one, or hit the restroom and take a rest, or the washroom and take a wash, or the bathroom and take a bath. But you can now you're landing at an airport that you didn't really plan on landing at. Are you really going to get all that information that you need about runways and everything that you usually plan a bit more in advance? I don't know. So yeah, it can kind of play with your mind there, if you got to go. And yeah, there we go. So another thing that got me kind of thinking about this too was like way back. It was okay. I'll get into that a little bit later. So now I've never had to use any specialized devices or anything like that, like a Gatorade bottle. Actually, when we were when we were doing our cross country trips when I was in college. Sometimes to be in the plane for 3 hours, and everybody always recommended bringing a water bottle, but with a large mouth on the bottle. Gatorade was a big fan. A lot of people were fans of Gatorade bottles, and so I never had to use one. But and if you ever do have to do that in a plane, don't try to dump anything out the window of a plane when it's flying. It'll kind of get blown back at you. I've heard that. And yeah, I know another guy is he at the school, like he just chucked it out the window. He didn't put the cap on. He's like, I'll just throw it out here, and it all sprayed down the sprayed down the side of the plane. But it was like -20, and it just instantly froze to the side of the plane. So when he landed, there was the next guy that was doing the pre-flight inspection was looking at the plane with this yellow streak down the side, and it was all hard and frozen. And the guy's like, "What is that?" So, anyways, yeah, you don't want to be throwing that stuff out the window. Anyway, okay, what else we got there? Yeah, so there's I also knew there was an old guy used to have his Tim Hortons coffee cup with him when he did his flying. He was quite an old pilot, and he asked me one day, I was doing the same route as him, and he's like, "What? You're not bringing a coffee cup with you?" And I'm like, "No, what for?" And now the guy was like pretty old, so as you get older, the I don't know, duration of the interval between urinations gets a little bit shorter. So he always brought a coffee cup with him. I don't know how spill proof that would be, but anyways, maybe it was just more of a peace of mind thing. And so, if you're in a little plane, make sure you go before both number one and two. So, yeah, another thing I was reading about, I was just for kicks, I was looking through old kind of like pilot manuals. You can get those online. A lot of them have been scanned, and for just different airplanes. And I was looking at a North American T6, or a Harvard as they call them here in Canada, and I noticed that there was a pilot relief tube, and I was like, pilot relief tube, what is that? Well, it was kind of like, I will demonstrate. No, I won't demonstrate it, but I'll make a little diagram here on how the pilot relief tube works. And so you got your airplane. I don't have a yellow marker, but that would be kind of funnier. Okay, we got our North American T6. It's got kind of a triangular kind of tail type thing, and we got a cockpit like that. Big radial engine on the front. Okay, big radial engine. What's that look like? And we got a wing. Okay, so this is exactly what a T6 Harvard looks like. Actually, let's give it a little bit more slope on the front for the windshield, and we got a sliding canopy. Something like, hey, that's looking a little bit more like a T6, or maybe a Yak. I'm not too sure. And we'll say the wheels are retracted. So in the pilot seat, here's our pilot sitting in there. Okay, let's get a different color for this illustration of the pilot relief tube. Green, red will show up. Red is usually for emergency, but actually, yeah, we'll use red because if you got to use the relief tube, it's an emergency. So here's your pilot seat here, and then you pull up this little kind of like a rubber hose with a funnel on it, basically, and here's your relief tube, and this goes into some plumbing. It goes back here, and there we go. So the pilot uses the funnel, and because there's a hole back here, it just kind of leaves the airplane. So I don't know, fertilizes some crops on the ground, I guess. And then and there actually would be like down here, it wouldn't really be any type of suction with the air going by. It would usually like static ports. Static ports are usually somewhere on the side, and it's kind of like a neutral, like it's not blowing anything in the plane, but it's not necessarily pulling anything out of the plane. Might be a little bit of suction there. and but enough that the liquid in the relief tube will be exit the airplane, and it goes down here, and it grows trees, and it goes back to nature as a fine source of nitrogen for everybody involved. So there we go. That is how that's how the pilot relief tube works in that plane. And I was just checking it before here. You can buy your own. There's a pilot relief tube for auction right now online. I checked it, and it was like there was no bids on it, but it was just kind of like this rubber hose with a cone. And supposedly it was for either a Spitfire or a Lancaster bomber. And well, you go. I don't know how well used it was, but 100 pounds sterling, and it's all yours. But yeah, so that's yeah, I looked also that it's in the Spitfire, and I found it in the P-51D Mustang manual pilot relief tube right there. Which makes me think, though, I don't know exactly what the girls did when they were flying the Spitfires and the Mustangs, because most of the ferry pilots that were bringing there, that the Mustangs and Spitfires were manufactured in Canada, the United States, and then it was usually the women that ferried them across the Atlantic and dropped them off over in England for the guys to go up and get shot in. So I don't know how the girls use the relief tube. Probably very carefully, I guess. Yeah. Anyways, and oh, hey, Wrench, hey, Dustin, and Rick's here too. Cool. So I was like, how has urination pilot relief tube technology come along in the last few years? I was also looking at that, and yeah, they got some really high tech kind of relief tubes now. Actually, it's not even a tube. Apparently, there was some of the older fighter planes. They had a relief tube also, like the older jets. And then when the women started flying those jets, they were basically wearing kind of a diaper type thing, which isn't very comfortable if you're on a long trip and you're getting air refueled. So now your mission can be like 10 hours long, or I'm sure there's, well, I'm not sure about the stealth bomber guys, those the B2s that take off and they just go forever and refuel and just go from one side of the world to the next. Not sure how that works, but I was looking at this like real high tech kind of thing that's it's all like computer operated, and I don't know, you can Google search it yourself, and I forget the name, but it was like this thing, and then it's got like a mini suction there, so as soon as it detects that there's any type of liquid in your flight suit, then it conveniently whisks it away to this little bag type thing, and they just like, yeah, they got like a little tube on their flight suit, and just it's part of the uniform, and away you go. So there was that one, and the other thing I can talk about is space toilets. So I managed to see a space toilet. Never used a space toilet. Did manage to see one, and when I was at the U.S. Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio, they kind of had a mock-up there of one of the space shuttles, and I could see it kind of near the front of the space shuttle, like in the middle of it. It's all kind of, it's all open. It's the I don't know, cargo bay or whatever, but kind of near the front, that's where the space toilet is, and I'm pretty sure it was. It was the strangest looking toilet. I don't know. Maybe it's for like Martians or something, but it looked to me, in my super pilotish, non-scientific, minimal research kind of show way, that the space toilet there it wasn't like a regular seat. It was kind of like a, I don't know, kind of like a little hole, a little mini volcano type thing kind of went in, and if I'm not mistaken, I think there was like a seatbelt on it. It was some kind of weird suction thing, space. Because if you're up there in no gravity, what are you gonna do? You have little bubbles going through, and it's all kind of gross, or other things. So it was like, that's the strangest space toilet I've ever seen. And there's like hoses and suction stuff. I think there was like a seatbelt there. And well, there you go, upside down doing your business. Probably with a great view because it was right next to a window. And so yeah, so I'm staring at this. What I'm thinking is the space toilet, and I needed confirmation. So there's this old lady and her husband were kind of by me, and they were like, "Ooh, space shuttle." I'm like, "Yeah, it's even got a space toilet." And then the old lady was, I think that is a space toilet." And the husband's like, "Let me see the space toilet." So I was like, "Yeah, okay, good toilet." I don't know what he said after that, but it was just kind of like, They were about to walk away, and I told them about the space toilet, and that was kind of cool. But anyways, so there we go. All kinds of technology available to you. Most importantly, is that if you're going to be in a little airplane or something like that, make sure you go before you have to go, and that will eliminate a lot of changes to your trip, to your flight that you might not want to have. And it could be another physiological thing there too. You might be tempted to just not drink anything and dehydrate yourself before going on a flight. Not the greatest idea, uh, because I was reading in this other article before the show that they've done studies, and it makes sense too that if you're dehydrated, your tolerance for G's, if you're a fighter pilot, you won't be able to pull as many G's, you pass out. And so there's that. There's your thinking ability is off because you're dehydrated, or I don't know, mental capacity, I guess, would be diminished a little bit. And what else were they saying about that? Oh, and then the long-term effects of that is that's kind of how you get kidney stones. And that is, if you start to develop kidney stones, you're going to lose your pilot medical because they test for that. When the pilots have to do their urine test, they test for kidney stones and your blood pressure, or not blood pressure, sorry, blood sugar level. They do check your blood pressure too; it has to be normal. And yeah, so they can tell with the urine test your how well your you know all your internals are working there that have to do with the flight. Because if you ever do have develop a kidney stone and you pass a kidney stone, as they say, well, kidney stone is basically it's a buildup of calcium. So you get this little calcium, which is basically it's like a rock, right? So you get your rock, and then it comes out through where you would normally use a relief tube. And if you're putting a rock out there, it hurts. If you've ever talked to anyone that's ever passed a kidney stone, they'll tell you it's brutal because you got something this big coming out of something this big that shouldn't be putting big stuff through it. So, anyways, and it's quite debilitating. I know a guy that I used to work with. He passed a kidney stone. And he said he was in so much pain. He got to work, got out of his truck, and then he wanted to go get someone to call an ambulance. He just passed out by the door by the shop from the pain, and someone found him there lying there, and they called an ambulance. So it's anyways, that is about it. So be if you are going to dehydrate yourself a little bit, then after the flight, make up for it by drinking tons and tons of water, or your other favorite beverage that will be cleaning out your internal pipes. So there we go. There managed to talk about that thing, I guess. All my little notes got covered, I believe. Okay. So that's about it for the stay safe, everybody. And I'm gonna check to see if there's any good dad jokes in here or or questions. We usually have a couple of those. Okay, what have we got here? Okay. Hmm. All right, we got a first-hand report from Ranch talking about how he relieved into a container before, but pants designed isn't appropriate to do this seated. Need a button flap design or a kilt. There you go, fly in your kilt. But yeah, though I was reading about how in this one article about how basically if you are going to use this whatever relief type stuff on the older jets before they came up with the new computerized whiz extraction device or whatever it is that they would have to put the plane on autopilot, and then they'd have to loosen up their seatbelt, and then they'd have to actually get up off the seat and put your feet on the ground like this and somehow get off the seat. Or I guess they'd have a handle that they could pull themselves up. Then you would have one hand operation to do whatever you have to do. And apparently, a few people like they messed up and they hit the ejection handle because things were getting in the way. And there's been a few planes. What was it? There's like a few F-16s and an A-10 or something like that that just I'm gonna go take a whiz. Out you go. Oops. So yeah, it's the ergonomics have come a long way. So, and I don't know, they might for little airplanes like my fly or wrench flies, that's they it might be better. All right, we got more. Okay, we got some other stuff here. Hey, Mr. Venturi. That's right, Dan. That's the Venturi is got all kinds of weird effects with speed, temperature, pressure, expansion, contraction, all that stuff. And you would have to consider the Venturi effects for your relief tube, I'd imagine. Yes, Wrench, you were correct. Liquid would atomize right away and never get to the tree. But, but I like drawing trees. So yeah, and that's another thing. Let's put that back up there. Yeah, so I asked one guy that pilot used to fly a 727, and the 727 it could take off with full fuel and away you go, but it has to be at a certain weight to be able to land again, to take the so that the landing gear could take all the shock. So if you're above a certain weight, and usually the older planes, older jets will be like that, where you have a maximum landing weight, and if you don't have that, then you have to jettison fuel. So this 727 guy said that they had a malfunction. I think they were flying from what was it, Air Transat Montreal down to somewhere in the Caribbean, or coming back from Miami. I think it was Miami back to Montreal, and they took off, and they had like a warning light that they had to get on the ground, but they had to go and jettison fuel. So he actually did manage. There's a procedure you do for that. You have to be at a certain speed, altitude, and so like I asked the guy, like, hey, what happens if you're dumping all that kerosene over the ocean? And he says, it just disappears, and it does. Like if you're up at way up there, take much for it to just kind of turn into some regular air pollution. So there we go. But I still think it helps the trees a little bit. Every little chunk of nitrogen helps. I'm a gardener. I know this stuff. Okay. Okay, what else we got here? All right. Well, anyways, I don't see any huge questions here. Okay, there we go. So we have confirmation here that Wrench grew up under Topeka runway. Have seen heavies dump fuel, stinky but no liquid. Yeah, I guess it'd probably just be like a vapor at that point, so you would be able to smell it. Okay, and what's this? Okay. I see Dan was saying something about the like button. So if you want, you feel free to like and subscribe to the Super Pilotish channel. And I'm not one of those, hey guys, like and subscribe, smash that like button. Yeah, I don't know. It's It's kind of not me. But anyways, that is about it for the show today. So today is Wednesday, so I'll be back on Friday. That's the next time I'll be here, and I'll probably be talking about something a little less. I don't know. uh, or maybe I'll go full scatological next time. Go over the top. But anyways, yeah, that's about it. I'll be back on Friday because I do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon Eastern, and we'll just kind of shut her down. So thank you for watching. Bye.